Ontario and in Canada. And the other point to make is, of course, the inclusion of content within the ICT sector. Again, I think one of the great things that we're excited about seeing about this consultation process is the fact that it's really showing industry working together with the cultural industry. And it's great to see that, and that relationship will help to get rid of the silos that have been established in the past. I mean, as John mentioned, even Canada 3.0 this year, to have such a stronger focus on content. And content is really still the driver. That's what our audiences are going to access. Yes, the pipes are important. Yes, we want the pipes to be Canadian. Yes, we want the pipes to be faster. But at the end of the day, it comes back to compelling content for Canadian audiences. And at all of that, of course, our independent content creators are really the key and the driver. Obviously, digital media is crucial to both Canada's economic and cultural future.
Thank you. Guess it. Hi, I'm Michael Carter. I'm the current sitting president for CASO, which is the Computer Animation Studios of Ontario. We're a volunteer board, which means I also own a studio as well as many of my other board members. We're somewhat of a new organization. We've only been around for about 5 years, and we kind of sit on the fence here. So we're a little bit of an odd duck in terms of the panel members, because half of our membership is content creators on the animation side, and the other half are visual effects service providers. So the people that create the stunning scenes in feature films and domestic projects and so forth. So our take on what Clement has asked us to look at is slightly different. We feel that there needs to be an emphasis on capacity building and on infrastructure, because obviously the content creators are really, these guys, and we're here to service their needs and to be able to do it efficiently, hopefully at a price that is appropriate for the Canadian market, as well as being able to do it as quickly as possible. So infrastructure is really the key point for where we're sitting right now. And when I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking about how do we connect to each other. You may find it a little odd that animation and visual effects really started in 1968. It was the key basis for our industry was the invention of the computerized keyframe, and that was invented by two NRC scientists working with the National Film Board. Now, what's the big deal about that? They're the first ones to create computer animation in the world. And you had a long history of computer animation and visual effects being born out of Ontario. You had Sheridan College producing lots of skilled individuals that would then go off to the world. And at one point, 60 to 70% of all the specialists in the world came from Ontario. So what we've seen up until now is a decline in that sort of knowledge building, that knowledge capacity, that infrastructure development. And we'd like to see that reinvested within the Ontario and national scene. Oddly enough, as studios are built, we really don't have a pipe to each other. So, what's the fastest way of getting information from one studio to another is I call up my PA and I say, can you come down, get the hard drive, run it over to marblemedia, and wait there. Don't go anywhere, because they may have changes, and then bring it back.
No.
Yeah, no, never. So one of the things that we're looking at as an organization is the invention of SohoNet, and SohoNet is both a cultural phenomenon as well as a technical phenomenon. Started in London, in the Soho district in London, England. And now SohoNet has pipes, production pipes, that are connected to New York, to LA, to Sydney. They have a minor pipe to Vancouver now, and a very minor pipe here in Toronto. But the nice thing about SohoNet is it has made a lot of companies that are independently thinking, very entrepreneurial, be able to work together. We don't have that here. We have obviously CASOs working hard to sort of get everybody to talk to each other and say, if Marble Media has a very important job to do, is it possible to spread out the work if one studio can't handle it? But we really don't have a physical way of actually transporting that information back and forth. So that's sort of that first part of the infrastructure building. The other one is capacity. So Mark talked about access to funds. Now, one of the most important things for a studio is that, as you know, work goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And unfortunately, the animation side of work is opposite to the visual effects. So currently within the Ontario scene, the visual effects studios are going gangbusters right now. You know, capacity is high. It's almost at the breaking point. But on the animation side, which are generally the IP creators or the individuals that are servicing Nelvanas and the cookie jars of the world, we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs because the CMF took a while to figure out, and nobody's commissioned anything, which means that we're not working. So what we want to do is we want to be able to bridge those gaps. And originally, the OK's tax credit was a bridge for that gap. Unfortunately, that has been used as gap financing for our clients or our producers, both domestic and international. So we need to come up with a new capacity building strategy in order for us to access funds easily and not be able to go to the one or two banks, RBC or any of the other banks or private lenders like Aver, not to go to them on a regular basis, but to be able to go to them when we need them. We need to have access to capital to allow us to expand our studios and to maintain some relevancy within the industry, as well as to invent those new techniques, which obviously spurred the creation of more visual effects in Los Angeles, more animation in Japan. The Chinese and the Indians love what we do in Ontario, and they've been able to replicate it amazingly well. So we're looking at infrastructure and capacity building. Sorry. Yeah.
We are, CLB Media is a privately owned company, and so my job is very simple. It's to get our owner a return. So my world is very much about where's the money. And so my job has been to try to take a magazine company that 2-3 years ago would have derived 100% of its revenue from what we would consider traditional sources, print advertising, list rental, and subscription, to obviously a very different mix now. And while we've had some success in that, I think now those three traditional sources make up about 65% of our revenue. There's been some challenges along the way, and I think the real challenges are what would shape the things that I think are most critical in all this. I think a couple of the key things to consider is the development of the new channels, the development of new content types, the development of new ways to engage audiences leads the development of a business plan to monetize it. So one of the things that I think is part and parcel of the world we live in is that we have to be constantly investing in these new areas while we're continuing to derive a return from our old media. It's very, very important in all of this, both in terms of how we hire, how we sell, how the government supports the industry, that we don't end up with an ingrained bias against some of the existing channels in our enthusiasm to drive towards the new. Because the simple reality is, in many cases, those existing channels are what are providing the day-to-day operational return that allows us to invest in the new. I've been a part of a lot of consultations on the migration of the CMF and the PAP fund to what is now the Canada Periodical Fund, a lot of different meetings along those lines where you can see this bias coming in. It doesn't make sense to have to throw something away to gain something new, particularly when, if you look at the history of media, that isn't how channels evolve anyway. Somebody described it to me really nicely a couple of weeks ago. They said, you know, when a new media channel emerges, it doesn't replace an old channel. All of the existing channels sort of move over on the bench and make room for it. And I thought that was actually a really nice visual. TV did not extinct radio. it reinvents itself, the channels find ways to work separately and together. And so it's very, very important that we're prepared to support in how we develop our companies, in how we develop our staff, and in how we develop our infrastructure and our government relations and funding, that we're prepared to support this kind of multi-channel universe without a bias. Because I think one of the other things that we really see as we're becoming better and better at measuring our audiences and how they engage with our content, is in fact our audiences are not an either or either. That in fact what we are becoming is information super users. So the people that are engaged with us in print, are engaged with us in web, are asking us to be able to deliver apps over mobile, are the ones that are watching our video. It really isn't an either or, and I think I find in an awful lot of the things I participate in, we seem to have or used much more often than and I think and is in fact a much more powerful word. One of the things I think is really going to be critical is on the skills front, certainly attracting new people to our industries. I'm part of what would be perceived to be old media. And one thing that has been a tremendous challenge for us has been to attract people to the business on the basis of our enthusiasm for our reinvention and making that enthusiasm clear to them so that we're not perceived as, well, old media I don't want to go to, I want to go to new media. Because if we're going to successfully reinvent and be that multi-channel entity, we have to be able to attract the best and brightest. So I think there's that aspect to it. I also think there's a very important, there's a responsibility to be able to transform the skills of the people we've got, because too often I can tell you over the last couple of years, the way I've been able to affect forward movement is by replacing, and in many instances there's a high age correlation, older with younger. And we have to have lots of tools available to transform the people we've got. I understand time is tight, so one comment I would make on the government side. I think we've had tremendous success in the magazine business working with government. The reinvention of PAP and CMF to the Canada Periodical Fund has been a very, very positive step. We have far more flexibility now to use the funding the way we need within our individual businesses. The structure is there, but it needs to be funded. We need to know that there's stability in the funding moving forward.
Thank you. Duncan.
Thank you. I'm Duncan McKie. I'm the president of the Canadian Independent Music Association. We represent about 160 music professionals from across Canada, including some of the best known independent Canadian labels. I'll try to be brief. A lot of what, and I echo what you were saying about the need to support the transition to new media or to new models with the old, and that's certainly something I think most people in the music industry would agree with today. The music industry's got a bit of a sad story to tell, as most people know. In Canada, the returns in recorded music have declined by about 50% over the last 10 years. And most people would attribute that to widespread digital piracy. That's unfortunate, of course. It's devastating for artists. It creates problems with reinvestment of capital in developing the industry. And it's forced the industry to move to, at least the domestic industry, to move to a number of new models of how they're going to do business. In the last couple of days, there's been a discussion of, I don't think that, is that me? Mine's off. Anyway, in the last couple of days in the papers, there's been a discussion of, how live musical performances are going to take, to some degree, the place of recorded music as the place where the music industry is going to go to recover the loss of revenues in recorded music. It's kind of interesting. So every day you can pick up the paper and find something new and interesting about what's going to happen to the music industry. So that's the way I keep abreast of it, not by reading the National Post. So on side with Hillside, don't listen to the haters. The festival season is A-OK, apparently. So despite the fact that Terry McBride couldn't pull off Lilith Fair again, apparently the festival season is in good shape. So if you were planning to go see a festival, it's going to happen. But here's a comment.